Good afternoon, good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the second segment of our Norman Manley Law School Legal Aid Clinic Fair. My name is Dion Cruikshank, attorney at law and tutor at the Norman Manley Law School Legal Aid Clinic. Welcome. Now, tomorrow at this time, let me advise all persons online and all persons who are here with us today at the Legal Aid Clinic that tomorrow our presentations will be live. We'll have exhibitors, we'll have booths. Tomorrow will be an interesting day. So I'm asking everyone to make their way down to the Norman Manley Law School Legal Aid Clinic tomorrow. Coming to the Legal Aid Clinic, it is the second gate if you're coming from Ligonier, and the first gate if you're coming from the back road of Augustown. You turn by the police station, and when you get to the stop sign, you make the right and you come right down past the police station and we'll be right there. Tomorrow will be an interesting and an informative and an energizing day. With us this morning, we will have Mr. Kirk Hansen from the Jamaica Customs Agency. Our slogan this year for our clinic is Buyer Beware, and we have been informing persons from yesterday and this morning of what to look forward to when you're purchasing various items. So at this time, I'll ask Mr. Edgar Lord to introduce our guest this morning, Mr. Kirk Hansen, representative of the Jamaica Customs Agency, to our segment this afternoon on Buyer Beware. Over to you now, Mr. Lord.
Mr. Kirk Hansen is currently a supervisor at the Jamaica Customs Agency, harnessing over 25 years of service, where he amassed extensive experience and knowledge in customs airport operations, entry processing, and seaport operations. He is a proud graduate of the Heriot-Watt University, London, where he completed a bachelor's degree in management and psychology. His zest and zeal for service to the Jamaica Customs Agency and his country has seen him moving through the ranks while coaching and mentoring team members. Mr. Hansen is an active member of his community, serving the Justice of the Peace Fraternity for the parish of St. Catherine. He is also a deacon in his church, Prayer Transforming Ministries, and men's president, where he plans, coordinates, and executes men's Sunday activities, among other duties. Mr. Hansen is married with 2 children and spends his free time with his family, reading, playing basketball, or just swallowing a good reasoning about the Bible or current affairs. We welcome Mr. Hansen.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lord, and welcome again, Mr. Hansen. A big welcome from us here at the Norman Manley Law School Legal Aid Clinic. Over to you now, Mr. Hansen.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. First, let me thank you for inviting the Jamaica Customs Agency to participate in this legal aid clinic fair under the theme, Let the Buyer Be Aware. Every now and again, I will have customers coming in and say, so, I don't understand this. Explain this to me. What is going on here? Why am I paying so much? And the theme today, Let the Buyer Be Aware, trust me, it's hitting the point home. Information is power, information is key. And as we get this information, then of course it guides us in our decision. So this theme today is relevant as we navigate the processes here at the Jamaica Customs Agency as it relates to importation, what to import, what not to, and how to. Today, we will take a look at some of these processes. And of course, it's my hope that as we close this presentation, then of course, the consumer will be more aware. All right, so thank you. Thank you again. Today, I have with me members of my team, Carol Gale, an officer at the Jamaica Customs Agency at the Universal Freight Warehouse, and Patrice Atkinson, a supervisor at TLF, Total Logistics Facility, which is Kingston Wharves. So they're here in support, and Ina Harity is here with me as well as our communication expert. So we're here just to share with you guys and just to impart what we have so you guys can be better aware as you encounter imports, whether by couriers, whether it is getting a barrel from overseas, whether it is that you're purchasing motor vehicle furniture, whatever it is. So we're going to share with you some of these information so at least we can be guided accordingly. So the objectives of this presentation is for us to understand the basic importation processes and requirements of the JCA, have a working knowledge of the documents required for processing commercial and personal shipments, have an appreciation of duties applicable to basic shipments and how to calculate same, and be more knowledgeable of what is required by the JCA when importing goods through the borders of Jamaica. But before I go into the presentation, just by a show of hands, has anyone had any interaction with imports? Whether through couriers, I see one, whether through couriers, whether through is receiving a barrel, whether it is, okay, so we have a few persons here. Someone just quickly tell me what the experience was like. Anyone? Yes, you.
Most part it was okay for the first for the most part it was okay. For the first few items that I got in, the rates were really well. But the last one that I got in, that was the one that I said I will never order anything again. It was almost about $15,000 that I paid in duty and fees. And I realized that the fees were more customs fees. So I had inquired as a student, do we get some kind of leeway with it? Because it was just like school items and books that we would order to be paying so much for them.
All right. Someone said over $50. We're getting there. I heard it. It's over $50. I'll get there. So yes. So in having that interaction and you paying more at that time, of course, there would have been some criteria which were checked off for you to definitely pay that amount of money. So when we go through, then we will see what those little check marks are, and then we can, have a discussion about it, and at least you'll be better aware going forward and how to navigate that. So thank you for that experience. So the Jamaica Customs Agency, in the execution of its mandates, perform agency functions on behalf of other border regulatory authorities. And this we do when we are conducting examinations of people, luggage, packages, when we are reviewing documentation to determine if permits are required, when we are conducting interviews, and when we are rummaging vessels or aircraft. These are some of the mandates that we perform for other agencies. So when we're examining luggage or packages, we're looking for contrabands, we're looking for illicit goods, we're looking for duty items, of course, we're looking for so many things. And it's not just for us here at Customs, but other entities such as the Ministry of National Security, such as the Ministry of Health or the Ministry of Agriculture. All these entities, we play our part in carrying out these functions for them at the ports, whether it's seaport or at the airport. So the JCA's mandates, we pretty much have 3 mandates internal to Customs. One is, of course, as my friend spoke of the $15,000 duties, is to, is to collect the revenue on behalf of the government of Jamaica. The other one that we have is to facilitate trade and also to protect our borders from illicit goods, counterfeit goods, or contraband. We enforce permit requirements on behalf of other border regulatory agencies through document reviews, intrusive and non-intrusive examinations. So when you are coming in through to collect a barrel, and the officer will say to you, okay, miss, we're going to need to see all the way down to the bottom of the barrel. And then, of course, you start taking out. We're looking for many things. So it's not just looking to say you pay this amount of duties, but we're looking for so many things while we conduct our examinations. If, for argument's sake, you might have a bag of dog food in your barrel, of course, customs going to tell you, say, but you can't get this because it requires a Ministry of Agricultural permit for the dog food. So we might detain it and say, all right, go to them, get a permit, come back to us, and you can clear your items. So when we are doing these examinations, it is not just for the revenue collection. All right? It's not just for the revenue collection. Let me say that again. So there are important requirements, and we're going to segue and break this down into two categories. One would be commercial imports, and the other would be personal imports. So commercial imports are goods imported into Jamaica for resale, trade, or goods on offer to the public for sale. So everybody would know that when you go to the supermarket, those goods are imported on a commercial basis. So those are the persons we tend to look at as the commercial importers, the formal commercial importers. Not to say that as individuals, when we purchase these items, that they're not commercial. So that's why the note there says there are instances where goods are imported as personal items, but can be considered to be commercial or commercial quantity. So let's take a quick example. You are importing a refrigerator that you saw. The manufacturer's intent is saying that this refrigerator should really be used in a restaurant. However, you say, but no, it's nice size, it's looking nice, it have everything that you want, plus more. And you choose to buy this refrigerator. In coming through customs though, we're going to look at this refrigerator, look at the manufacturer's intent and say, but guess what? While you're using for your personal use, this item is considered to be commercial because of the manufacturer's intent. So point to note, when you're buying your items, look at what the manufacturer's intent is. Because I know persons who buy the industrial stove because they do look at cooking on the side and they think it is best to use. But guess what? When it comes to customs, it will be deemed commercial. And in deeming it commercial, they pay more. Yes, I see that face down there, but yes, you pay more because there is a uplift on the GCT of 33.3%, which we'll go into a little later on. All right, so that's a point to note when you're purchasing, and that's why this theme that is being used is awesome. Let the buyer be aware, because guess what? There are so many things out there that we should be aware of, but we are really not. And when we're in the position, if we did know. So now we're here sharing with you guys the little tidbits on custom processes. So commercial imports, how do I clear my commercial goods? The first thing is any commodity, any imports that exceeds $5,000 US, you would need a licensed customs broker to effect that clearance for you. That means the broker would go ahead and prepare a customs declaration and present that to customs for approval before it can be cleared at the ports. So after you get that from your broker, the broker then says to you, if you choose, you can go ahead and clear the item at the port yourself, or the broker will send a representative there to do the clearance for you. And it's the same thing with the couriers. If you import goods through the courier and it's deemed to be commercial, it's the same process, and exceeds $5,000 US, it's the same process. So you go to get the broker, they prepare the documentation, submit to customs. The customs at entry processing unit passes these documentation and then say it's good for you to go to the port and clear your items. So if goods shipment value less than $5,000, however, the clearance documents, the customs clearance documents can be done either by the shipping agent, the freight forwarder, the courier, the broker, and they would submit those documents through customs for approval before you come to the port and clear. And always remember, whether it is commercial or personal, once you purchase an item, present your invoice or your receipts to the agent. So when they prepare this documentation, they have that uploaded to the system. So when we put it up, we say, okay, all right, you bought a washing machine and the cost of the washing machine was $200. This is the legitimate invoices. We accept and we pass and we keep it moving. However, if there is no invoice coming to us, that is where the problem lies, because we now would have to rely on the relevant internet sources to see what the value for those items are. So if you don't have your invoice, your processing will be delayed, whether through commercial or personal, because we have to do a research to verify what the actual cost paid or payable would be at that time. So remember, if you buy legal books and the value exceeds $50, present your invoices. If you buy any instrument that you use in your trade, present the invoices. It takes less time and you will get your shipments a lot faster. All right. What do I need when I'm clearing my commercial items? One, you will need your TCC. That's a requirement. You must have a TCC in order to clear your commercial imports. You must have your TRN. And we can't stress enough, I think it's highlighted there. We have to stress the authentic invoices, because I can't say it because I think we're streaming online. But you do have persons who try to navigate around certain things and they will present you with documents which are not legitimate. So always remember, provide your authentic invoices, all right? So if it is that you're importing items as well that require a permit, for example, you're importing your supplements, men carrying in their whey powder to bulk up and, keep healthy and fit. Some of these items require the Ministry of Health approval before they're imported. So if it is that you have these products, always apply for your permit ahead of time, because if you do after the fact, then it is indeed a breach of the Customs Act. All right. The IM4, the Customs Declaration form, that is also needed, and also your bill of lading or your airway bill if you're coming through the airport. Where do I go to effect clearance? Your shipping agent is always the first stop, because they will provide you with the shipping documents. For example, your bill of lading, and some will indeed give you your C86 or C84, depending on the type of import and the value. Next, you will employ the services of a licensed custom broker if the value exceeds $5,000 US. If the value is under $5,000 US, then of course, I said before, your agent, your courier, freight forwarders, they are able to create this customs declaration so that you can go ahead and do your processing on your own. After you finish with all that documentation and the entry has been passed by customs, then of course you will now go to the warehouse for clearance, examination and clearance. And of course, which no one wants to see, but pay additional customs duties if necessary. No, I'm not looking at you this time. All right, so if it is necessary, if it is that based on what you declared, let's say you declared one laptop, but when the officer examines the shipment, it might have a laptop bag, it might have the headset, it might have other things inside there, then of course, all those other items will have to be assessed for duties and the additional duties paid before release is done. So this is the interesting portion of the presentation, the personal imports. This is where all of us, whether through couriers, whether through barrel importations, whether through whatever it is, coming to the airport, and you might have dutiable items. This is where we all get affected. So personal items, these are goods not manufactured for commercial use, imported by or sent to an individual for personal use. So examples of these, but not limited to: food, clothing, toiletries, household articles, appliances, toys, games, furniture. Sounds like it in a nutshell, right? However, not all furniture, as we know, would be considered to be personal. Not all toys would consider to be personal. Not all, leave that one alone. Toiletries can be considered to be personal, but also commercial based on the quantity. All right. So while they're there as being the general guide of what personal items are, all these commodities can be considered to be commercial. Again, in going to the airport or seaport and you're presenting your documents to customs, these are the relevant documents that you would require. Of course, your valid ID, and that would either be your passport, voter's ID, driver's license. Your TRN is required. If you don't have a TRN, unfortunately, you will not be able to clear your items on that day. Your customs declaration form, which is your IMS-4 or your IMS-4 in this case, it must be prepared by the shipping agent or the courier or the broker and submit to us when you come down to the office. And of course, again, we stress one more time, authentic receipts and invoices. You see how much time we say it since the presentation started, right? Right. So if you're a traveler, if you came in from the US, UK, wherever it is you're coming from, and you're coming through the baggage hall, and you have, you've shipped some items, always ask for your, back in the day, we used to call it yellow paper. We used to call it C-27. Now it's called the UBA. Ask for your allowance, your traveling allowance. This is what you get as a traveler. It's $500 currently. The minister made some announcement that it will be increased. If you know you have shipped and you're receiving items, always ask for your allowance. It helps to reduce the cost you pay to customs. And to customs only, not at the shipping agent, not at anywhere else, but customs duties. And this only applies to personal imports. So once you travel, say to the customs officer there, I think I might get some items within 2 months. Ask for your form. It's important to you, the consumer, because it helps to reduce your revenue paid to customs. So in argument's sake, in your case with your items, if the cost of the items, let's use the ballpark figure, was $300, argument's sake. Argument's sake. All right, for $300, and you have your traveling allowance, and of course, you would only pay the customs instead of $15,000, you'd pay $1,500. Right, but it's only given to a traveler. All right, so if you have not traveled, you can't get the allowance. All right, so the allowance lasts 2 months before or 2 months after you arrive to Jamaica. So as long as the goods come within that 2 months, then you are safe to go. Right. Mm-hmm. Right. Allowance. Right. Thank you, Pat. So what do I need to clear my items? And again, if you're using this allowance, when you're going to the seaport or the airport, or even using your courier, ensure you declare it first. I have traveled, I have an allowance, please to apply it to whatever it is that I'm clearing. Because there are times when you import these items to your courier and you don't tell them that you have this allowance and then you pay $15,000 for argument's sake. All right. Or it might be a case where you go through your agent and you do everything else. And at the end point, after you pay customs $15,000, then you say, but I have a traveling allowance. Always let it be known first. Or after you pay for your goods, the goods have exited and you have left the seaport or airport, you cannot come back to customs and say, but I had this after the fact. No, always declare that you have this allowance first. So we know exactly how to treat the situation. And in the case of used items, you might have items that you have imported, whether through your courier or through a barrel or carrying a person, that are used. Used items have values. All right. So you might carry in a used television expecting it to just be given to you or might pay minimum charges. No, used items do have values. When you import a television, for argument's sake, and you are coming to customs, oh, I have a used television. Customs first thing, customs will ask you, how much did you pay if you purchased? Do you have a receipt? Would be the next question that we ask. If none is coming forward to us, then of course we can always do the research of a used similar item and then do the reduction accordingly. All right, so we'd appreciate the value based on a number of factors, how used it is, whether the year and stuff like that, to come to a fair value, not just for the consumer, but for us as well, because overcharging is not what we are all about. All right. Are there any entitlements? So presently, all passengers or travelers landing in Jamaica who are 18 years and older are entitled to a duty-free allowance of $500 US or its equivalent. All right. So once you're a traveler and you're over 18, then you are entitled to this allowance. But again, you have to inform the officer at the airport that you shipped an item so they can issue you that allowance. So the next step beneath it is just simply saying, once you come in, explain to the officer that you have shipped. The officer will do an examination of your luggage. So, point to note, if you go through the green channel, you will, which is the nothing to declare line, then you will not get that allowance. And there's a sign there as well that says, if you have shipped, go to the red line or the red channel. Yes. So if you ship, don't go through the scanning line where you put it back to the scanner and you go through quickly. Join the line, wait patiently and say, officer, I have shipped, I need my paper. And they will say, okay, the system might be down. You will hear that every now and again, system is down, but they will put it in the system. So when you come to us, just present your passport. All right. So even though the line might be longer at the red channel, your entitlement is also at the red channel. All right. The allowance for the passenger arriving is for you, the passenger, meaning that your auntie who lives next door, you can't use to clear their items. It's for you, the traveler. And it's for personal items only, meaning that you can't import your commercial washer or commercial washing machine and expect to use that allowance on that item. I'm not looking at you, I just scanning there. Yeah, thank you. Right, so always remember that this allowance only covers personal items. No commercial item will be given on this allowance. And those of us who ship through our couriers, the de minimis value is indeed $50 US currently. Currently, the minister did say that this will be increased as well hopefully next financial year. But of course, $50 is the set limit at this point in time. What that simply means is anytime you import an item and it is below $50, then you do not pay customs charges. And it is regardless, it doesn't matter whether it is commercial in nature or personal. Once it's $50 and below, this is given to you without the payment of customs charges. Okay, that's a good question, yes. And it depends. Right, so yes, the invoices can be joint, but of course there are criteria which will be used to determine whether or not they will be joint. If you're bought from multiple sources, then of course we can't consider that to be one shipment. So of course, if you buy from Walmart, then you buy from Target, then you buy from somewhere else, then of course we would not look at that as being accumulated and being over $50 because there's no effort there to circumvent paying duties. But when it is that you buy multiple items, let's say from Walmart, and you choose to separate them, and then when it comes to customs, we're saying, but we have 10 packages for her from the same Walmart on the same day, came in on the same vessel, then something is not going on here. So we have to ensure that we do our checks and balances. All right, so there are conditions to, yes, whether or not we go ahead and we put invoices together, but it can be done. What if I can't make it to collect my shipment? All right, so you're in the country and you're not able to come pick up your items at the seaport or any one of the air cargo sections at the airport. Then of course you can always do a letter of authorization to someone for them to come and pick up that item for you. Of course, that letter must be accompanied by your identification. If it is copied, then of course they must be stamped and signed by a justice of the peace or notarized. Let me use that word, it must be notarized. All right. And once that is done, then they will have no issues in effecting clearance on your behalf. All right. How do I pay customs duties? Most persons are familiar with us going to the port and pay their charges, but there are other options available. So we accept cash, we debit credit cards, managers check, online payment, and more recently, Customs has come up with a Jamaica Customs app that you can pay your charges using that app, and you can track your shipment as to where it is in the process. So there's a new app. It's in the Google Play Store. It's in Apple as well, where you can download this app and you can pay and track. General information. How many of us? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Carol? The flyers, the brochures. So as of April 2, 2024, it will be mandatory for all imports below $5,000 to be examined when you're not there. It is called the contactless clearance process. It is simply that we are moving away from the old way of doing things. The brochures are being issued on that process, so you can also be aware of what is indeed happening April 2. So just to go again, the contactless clearance process, this is where the documents are prepared by your agents. And this is for values under $5,000 personal items, where the agents prepare these documents, present them to customs, and the shipment is examined without the customer being present. What that does is to alleviate congestion at the ports. It also speeds up the processing. So let's say your shipment is ready at the port. The agent creates the declaration for you, submits it to customs. Customs, seeing that the shipment is ready, we will go in, examine, release. The agent will now contact you and say your shipment is now ready for pickup. So you don't have to come inside any seaport, airport with all sorts of persons, laptop went. All sorts of persons asking or saying to you, boy, I can help you out, you know. We call those that are friendly hustlers. All right. So they will approach you for them to go ahead and do these things on your behalf. And a lot of persons consider it a hassle. All right. So it sort of gets rid of all of that as well. And I believe it would make the system a lot more efficient. All right. So you have the brochure, you can read it in your time. And if you have questions, you can also contact the information, I think it's at the back of the form, if you have questions. All right, just a quick question. Someone can possibly get a nice token from the Jamaica Customs Agency. What is the buzzword that I've used quite a few times so far in the presentation? Anyone, just raise it. There you go. Yes. So you'll get a token on our behalf. Right? Yes, and again, we stress. Thank you, sir. Can anyone tell me, except you, one of the mandates of the Jamaica Customs Agency? Just one, anyone. What we know about customs, what is our main aim? Not all right, let us help. Our friend here paid $15,000 in what? In collection of the government's revenue. Yes, that's one of our mandates. There's another one. Anyone? All right, so anyone else want to take a stab at another one? So I'll mention 4, but we can limit it to 3. So we facilitate something. Anyone? Facilitate trade. And we protect our borders. Thank you. All right, so that's the general information that come April 2, Customs is moving away from the old way of doing things and to start with the personal imports. And of course, more will come tomorrow. Customs will have their booth on property. So of course, you can also get more information through that means.
Thanks for that, Mr. Hanson. I have 2 questions for you from persons online. What is the minimum age for persons to ship things? So if a 16-year-old, for example, saw a pool table, is he or she?
All right, so the legal age for import is 18 years.
Thank you for that, sir. Secondly, if a person is away shopping and, Manhattan 34th Street, they saw some items on the road which looked good. They weren't the genuine items, for example, a Ralph Lauren counterfeit or a Nike, and they brought them into Jamaica just for their own small quantities, not for resale.
Mhm.
Is that permissible?
Yes, if you buy clothing items for your personal use, you can import them. Whether or not they are authentic now becomes another matter, because if it is you're buying these items in commercial quantity, then that is where you would more have an issue, because that is where all other border regulatory agencies will come into play, because copyright and all of that comes into play. So the owners of the copyright might decide to pursue as long as it's commercial. If they pursue this matter, then of course the goods will be taken and destroyed once it's commercial.
Thank you very much, sir. And another question, if a person is a bird shooter and they saw a good deal at Walmart for a Remington shotgun, are they able to purchase it and ship it down to Jamaica?
All right, I will leave that one further on into the presentation. There is something in there about permits and licenses and no objection letters from national security. So when we get there, then of course that definitely will be answered.
I'm guided, sir. Thank you. Those are the questions for now.
Thank you.
Yes, so my question is that you may mention that items over 5,000, you need the assistance of a customs broker.
Yes.
If a person goes to the customs without a customs broker, does the customs facilitate the location of one for them?
All right, once the value exceeds 5,000 US dollars, then you must have the assistance of a broker to prepare your customs declaration and submit same through the system, through ASICUDA. So what that means is that the broker prepares the documentation, submits it to customs, customs will approve or query certain aspects of the declaration. Once it's approved, then that documentation can be given to you, the importer, or by the broker to go to whichever port it is and do clearance after that documentation has been prepared and submitted. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Give you names for brokers.
Oh, okay.
And yes, and we are not inclined to do that because that would be a conflict of interest. So we will direct you, however, to the broker association where you could go there and make your own choices with regard to I've had that question quite often.
Yes, so have I. Right. So there is indeed a brokers association that or associations that can indeed assist you. We won't give you a direct name, but we'll direct you to the association who is able to recommend members who is able to get it done for you. Sure. General information. Any person wishing to benefit from the use of the allowance must have a TRN. If you don't have a TRN, then of course, nothing can be prepared for you and the clearance cannot take place. So presently, the flat rate for a regular barrel is $6,500. So you have your barrel, it consists of clothing items, food, toiletries, knickknacks. You pay $6,500 for that barrel coming through customs. So if it is that you are importing a box, a crate, a skid, any other mode or package type, then of course that 6.5 is not applicable. So once you have a box, then whatever is inside the box will be valued and then you pay the duties on those items. Per barrel, $6,500. So duties are paid on a term we refer to as CIF of any item. That is the cost of the item, insurance, and freight. CIF. Trying to remember that CIF, right? CIF, remember it. So the cost of the item plus freight plus 1% insurance by air or 1.5 by sea. So the cost is the price paid for the goods. The freight amount is the amount that you pay to ship the goods to Jamaica. And the insurance rate is at 1% by air and 1.5% by sea. So a simple calculation of how CIF works out. You bought an item for $1,000 US. Shipping cost is $65. That will give you $1,065. And let's say you're shipping by air, which the insurance is 1.5%. So the insurance will be 15.98% as seen there. And of course, your CIF value would be all that combined and converted to the Jamaican dollar. All right. So persons come in or even call over the phone and say, but I have this item. What are the duties? So I say, okay, do you have the cost of the item? No, can't help you. Because of course, the cost of the item is very important in calculating the duties. So if it is that a person calls and say, all right, I have a TV, the value is $1,000. My shipping I know is going to be $65. How much am I expected to pay to customs? And then of course, we would now calculate the duties based on all the information that is given. All right. So important note, the commodity is important as how duties are calculated because varying commodities have varying rates. So if you're importing your books, books don't attract import duty. So the rates would be different on books as in comparison to a television or shoes or clothing. All right. So there are some basic tax types that is found on most personal shipments. That would be your import duty of 20%, your SCF or standard compliance fee at 0.3%, environmental levy at 0.5%, and a CAP or customs administrative fee at $2,500, and your GCT at 15% for personal items. So as with the calculations before, in terms of CIF, right here, we have our CIF value in Jamaican dollars. So we're going to use that as our point or our CIF to calculate duties on a television set, argument's sake. When you look at the calculations, you would see your 20% import duty right here. Right up here. So 20% of your CIF cost gives you your import duty. SCF is 0.3% of your CIF cost, which will give you that tax type right there, that value. Environmental levy, same, CAF, $2,500, and your GCT. Point to note, in your calculations, or if you're doing it, knowing that you have something to import that will attract duty, point to note is that your GCT falls at the end of the calculation. All right, so let's step away first. All right, so if you realize your GCT value is not your CIF value, right? So you'd have to add your CIF plus your import duty plus your SCF, your environmental levy, your CAP to get the value for GCT, and that's where you calculate your 15%. So some person could look at this and say, but how am I paying so much for GCT and GCT only 15%? It is 15%, but it's just where it falls in the calculations. Understood? All right, so that is where it falls, and you would end up paying estimate of 67,244, if that is what it is. So with this formula, you can plug in your own figures when you're shopping. And when you plug in your figures, you're more informed to say, okay, all right, I'm supposed to pay in this ballpark figure at customs. Do I make this purchase? Do I wait until it's on sale? Do I no longer purchase this item? Do I get it locally? So all this information you have at your fingertips so you can make wise decisions. All right. So point to note again, your barrel rate does not include freight cost. It's just a flat rate. So no matter what your freight is, once your barrel is a standard or basic barrel, then of course, we don't consider freight or insurance as we would when it comes down to boxes, skids, crates, whatever it is. Commercial shipment processing fee ranges depend on the package type, depend on how much pieces are actually there. And it will go from 10, 15,000 and 5,000 to the couriers. Stated there, however, crates, skids, pallets attract an additional examination fee. And that examination fee will be at about $2,500. Can someone read the first line for me, please? Oh, thank you. Always, please, always take with you your authentic receipt. Yes, Pat. And that happens a lot through the couriers. Courier will come in and say, okay, customs want to see a receipt, so come in and open your account so they can see it. So it happens a lot through the couriers. All right. Right. And always be truthful in your declarations to the customs officer. So if you import an item or import a package, and you know in that package you have cell phones, you have laptops, you have headsets, you have whatever it is, then of course make that declaration. Because when the officer goes through and you're seeing, oh, there wasn't that question. It was just asking them to read the first one. So that's all. Right. So always be truthful in your declaration to the customs officer. And always remember, customs reserve the right to doubt any value you present to us. And this is section 19(2) of the Customs Act. You present us with a documentation or invoice, and we say, hey, we don't like this. We're going to ask you for your proof of purchase. We're going to ask you to prove to us that this is what you paid for your item. All right. So always have your proof of purchase, whether it is your credit card receipt, whether it is that you bought, they sent you an email outlining the charges and the cost of the items. And again, answer truthfully any questions raised by the customs officer. And of course, false declaration is a breach also of the Customs Act. Shipping by courier or by post, you still need your permit or your import license. Your invoice and your receipts, definitely. Shipping items without the permits is a breach of the Customs Act. Always apply for a permit. Once you know the item requires a permit, always apply for a permit before the goods gets here. If you're not sure, don't be afraid to call customs. Call customs, use them live chat, call the numbers listed, ask that the person with the hunter, yes, he requires an approval from the Ministry of National Security. Because if he imports this item, and again, importing a shotgun with, I'm hoping it's a shotgun, the person said. So we'll ask for the question to come back to us.
Yes,
So-
sir, it was a shotgun, sir.
It was a shotgun.
Yes, sir.
All right, getting there. So permits, license, and other requirements. So as border officers, we conduct or we do agency functions on behalf of national security, Ministry of Agriculture, Ministry of Health, Pesticide Control Authority, all these persons. When we carry out our functions, we have all of these requirements in mind. So once we're looking at a shipment, okay, you're importing a scooter, a motorized scooter, or e-bike. Yes, you have to get your trade board approval before importation. So knowing all of this, the officer will indicate to you the requirements. So why are permits required? So permits are required for these basic reasons. Prevent crop wipeout, prevent compromising public health and safety, pest transfer to domestic plants, disease transfer to animals, impact to national interest, and intellectual property theft. The protection of the general welfare and security of Jamaica by ensuring that items which are prohibited and restricted are treated with the same actions necessary to manage what is mentioned here. So there are two main categories of regulated goods that we have: prohibited and restricted goods. So restricted goods are those goods or articles which require a special license or permit certificate from one of the other regulatory entities before the item is allowed entry into the country. So you have fruits, you have vegetables, you have animal products, you have nuts, milk, and so forth. These are restricted items and need import permit or license before they are imported. All right. And again, we have to look at it. If it is that you have a barrel and you have a small package of any of these items, then of course, discretion is used in situations like those for personal use. Prohibited items, these are goods or articles which are forbidden by law to enter the country. Illicit drugs, laundered money, narcotics, and of course, we see them trying to do this more often than not. All right. Yes, illicit drugs and also laundered money. So these are some examples of permits and items. So when you carry in your roach or ant sprays, yes, it requires a permit. When you import your rodent baits, yes, your insect repellents, yes. When you have your dog food or your veterinary drugs for your little chihuahua at home, yes. When you're trying to import your plants, yes. Fruits, definitely. Live animals, yes. All right. Feathers for carnival, yes. All right. So yes, these items require permits. All right. So yes, these require permits as well. All right. So again, cooking oil in bulk, yes, you require the JACA permit. Body wash, bar soap, again in bulk, yes, you require those permits as well. Anything that contains nuts in general, yes, would require permits. So the Ministry of Health, when you have your supplements, yes, in large quantities, yes. Your personal drugs that our grandparents need, and they send a box full of it, yes, it needs approval from the Ministry of Health. before importation. However, if those goods arrive here, then in some cases, the ministry will come down to the ports and approve or stamp off on the documentation. Otherwise, you can go to the ministry, they will stamp the documentation, and then you can come and clear those items. And that's the end of our presentation. But what are the keywords again? All right, so every time you ship, have your receipts. Every time you purchase an item through your couriers and they're bringing it in through the airport or the seaport, always have your receipts to give to them. When that does not happen, of course, customs have a warm time in ascertaining values, and then we resort to the internet to determine whether or not it is $50 or $500. All right, so the shotgun, the Ministry of National Security would be best to advise him in that regard because they're the authority on those matters. So they will tell him whether or not he can import it as an individual or he can import it or buy it from a local agent here. What's his name again? Sasso Distributors, right? So the ministry will be best able to inform him whether or not that can be imported as it is for an individual.
Thank you, Mr. Hanson. Another question. Someone online indicated that having arrived into the country a few weeks ago, they had a small bottle of honey and it was confiscated at customs upon arrival.
Yes, honey, because we have a local market, that honey is not approved for importation. We have a local market and have to protect ours first, right? So those products definitely cannot be imported like that.
So, Mr. Hansen, is there a list of products that persons can be aware that they cannot import into the country because there's a large amount here? Because it was a senior citizen, I'm getting based on the query, and they were not aware that they could not take this particular brand of honey to sweeten their tea.
All right, so I pause right there because honey is sold straight across the land of Jamaica. So whether or not honey is required, it is available here. In terms of a listing that will tell you whether or not you can import, I think on the customs website, there is a list. It's not exhaustive by any means, but there is indeed listing on the customs website that can inform consumers on what it is that they can import and if it requires license or permits.
Thank you for that, sir.
1 second.
And I want to add to the presentation about persons who may come through the airports and be admonished against taking some items, and it would be taken by the officer or demanded or requested, without want of a lighter word, from the traveling party for customs purposes, and you might want to destroy it. This is counter to the Customs Act and constitutes a breach of the Customs Act under Section 198. So if it is that you take in an apple and we say, okay, you can't get the apple because the apple is not, you don't have a permit or you need to go request one, and you bite into that apple and destroy the property of customs, then you can be breached for it. Because the items are actually the property of customs, though you are the one that purchased, until you clear and pay the requisite duties.
Thank you for that information. And I think that information is very valuable to our listeners and our viewers, because many persons were not aware of that. So I thank you.
All right.
You mentioned earlier about used goods, and then in the vein of receipts. So for example, if I have a used TV that I'm sending to Jamaica. Could I, say, I have someone bought it from me for $100. Will you take that receipt as being
Authentic original receipts? Unfortunately, it
No?
would not check, but what can happen though, when you import that used item, if it's a television, it has models and so forth. So we can also do a check on that to see if the range of what we're seeing is in line with your $100. And if it is, then in most cases, that $100 would be accepted.
And where do you look for the
We use every site that is possible to us to ascertain value. So for used items, eBay is usually one of the most common ones that can be used because eBay sets a lot of used items, and not just used items or refurbished like Amazon, but some really used items. So you can more gauge your research based on that.
Yeah, but you do realize that eBay is like where people sell for a profit. So would you consider reducing it as well?
All right. So once it is that we utilize any internet value, it is usually reduced by 15% for internet value. If it is that based on what we're seeing, the condition of the item is below what we're seeing, then we will further reduce that value or depreciate that item to arrive at a reasonable value.
Okay. And then I saw on the list, coffee was one of the yeah. So let's say we're coming through the airport as law students, we all love coffee. And we stop at Starbucks and buy 2 packages to bring back.
No, that's fine.
That's fine. Okay.
That's fine. You're welcome.
All right. So once upon a time, persons used to be worried about taking their laptops when they're traveling because you don't know if you're coming back, you're going to have to pay for said laptop. So are there any rules if you have devices that seem expensive and you don't want customs to charge you for it again when you're leaving and you're coming back with it?
Actually, yes. Once it is that you're leaving with any electronics, any item that can be registered by a serial number, model number, whatever it is that is there, then of course, once you register with customs that you're taking this item outside of the country, when you're returning with this item, then you will not be charged duties. But you have to register this item. That would be at the airport. When you're going to the duty office, you just explain to the officer, I have my laptop, I'm traveling for business purposes or for school, and I'm returning with this item. They will register it, give you a copy of that form. So when it is that you leave and you're returning home, then of course you would go through the steps of showing that back to the officer, and they'll go ahead and just allow you to go once the process is completed.
Okay, thank you. So we have the situation also where persons travel several times a year, jet setter like my friend here. So is it that every time she travels, she has a $500 allowance?
Yes. Every time you travel, because I've had customers that travel 3 times per month, and every time you see them, they ship. So they would have 2, 3, 4 allowances for different shipments. We can't tell them that no, they can't use it because they're entitled to it. So yes, every time you travel and you ship, yes, you can get your allowance for each time you travel. Yes.
Right. And this one is for the returning residents. So we know that there's some special provisions that are allowed, grandma and grandpa coming back home and they come, but then as is typical nowadays, it seems that they forget Jamaica isn't as how they remember it. And so they go back overseas. And then the next time they say that is the final. But there's some type of waiver when you're coming back home. How does that work and under what circumstances?
All right. So as a returning resident, you are entitled to your household items. Again, you would have to put in the application, meet the requirement as a returning resident, be living overseas for I think at least 3 years. And once you apply, show them that you are no longer employed and you're coming home, you will furnish customs with a list of items that you're importing. So once you furnish customs with that list and it is approved, when those items come, the customs officer at the port will go ahead and do an examination of the items, tick off what you're entitled to. If you have anything outside of that, one of two things can obtain. One, you can be asked to go back to return resident unit for them to add that to the list, or you pay the customs duties. Usually with returning residents, you have, I think, 6 months in which the goods must be in Jamaica. And you can only get that returning resident status once. So if it is you choose to go back home, go back to the US to live for another 3, 4, 5 years and then come back to Jamaica, no, you would not get that returning resident status again.
Also, in addition to that, for the returning residents, the items don't necessarily have to be used. They can be brand new.
Yes.
And also students can qualify as returning residents as well. Once you would have studied and you have your degree to show, okay, I've finished the program and I'm returning home, then you are eligible. Backtracking a bit to the persons who spoke of the UBA unaccompanied baggage allowance that you get at the airport. Oftentimes when you travel multiple times per month, you come with your 3 UBA numbers and you say, I want them to be applied to my one shipment. It's not like that. It's only one UBA that's applied to each shipping document. So if it is that you have 5 barrels and you want to ask your agent to ship 3 down and then 2 after, based on your convenience, that you can use 2 of those forms. But you oftentimes it's only one. That's the rule of thumb. Only 1,500 per shipment, per bill of lading or airway bill.
Okay, so what about if I'm a student, I came back to Jamaica, live here for like 5 to 10 years, go back overseas, and then I spend like 30 to 40 years overseas and then returning back to Jamaica now. It's the case that when I returned as a student, I carried home some items, home items. Can I do the same thing even after those period has passed?
That one I would, because the returning resident, returning student and returning resident, they're different. So I would have to, if I go on a limb, I would possibly say you could benefit, but I will have to get further information on that and I will definitely get back that information to you. Yes.
A lot depends on what you're taking in and the volume of what you're taking in. So the returning residents unit and our customs agency have a lot of units within the agency. We're very large in terms of that. So even when it comes on to ascertaining authenticity of documents, there is a valuation verification branch, and we go the entire gamut. I worked there for 5 or 6 years. So we liaise with overseas international. We have that kind of clouds in the international sphere to seek out authentic information if it's not given. So bear that in mind.
So always provide your authentic. There you go. There you go. Yes. Yes.
So we have had in recent times some instances where there have been goods and we've wondered, how did they get in? Especially yesterday, I think we were talking about the food and items that children ended up exposed to. So if we do find that, and let's say it is that the goods are here and nobody is able to account for how they arrived in the island, does customs have an interest, or is that strictly a matter for the police?
Once they are imported, yes, we have an interest. Once they're imported, definitely we have an interest. I think the same case that with the school children with the candy, I think it was. and the drugs that were inside those candies, Customs has now been looking closer at sweets being imported. So every time candy hits our system or our risk profile, then it is marked for further examination by other units to ensure that these candies don't pass our borders again. All right, so we're now looking deeper into candies or sweets for that general purpose of protecting our general population.
And so do you have a complaints division? Because suppose there's somebody in the public who says, boy, I see John with X and I'm very worried about X being in Jamaica. For example, John has a new type of corn and you see the corn being sold and you say, wait, this corn it's not usual.
Different.
It's different, right? So is there a complaint? Is there a talk about John, blow the whistle on John?
All right, Customs do have our public relations office, our customer service office. We do have lines to border protection. We do have lines to investigation or intelligence units that will take these on and do the further investigations into it to see whether or not whatever John is growing in his backyard was actually imported or he just fused some seeds together to create a new strain of corn in his backyard. But yes, we do have units that can be called if something seems a little bit off, especially when it comes on to imported goods. Then yes, you can call. If you recognize, we in the media every now and again you will find where customs go to certain stores and seize counterfeit goods. It's not what could just walk inside. Persons would call customs and say, hey, some of these goods are at that store. And then customs will take that information now and do further investigation.
And in addition, we provide agency functions. So for the sweets, Ministry of Health would come into play. And it has been a big thing in the media now. We cannot act without the ministry. So we act in tandem with each other. We support each other. Oftentimes, every custom officer actually has to know what certain agency offers and their functions so that we can execute our functions on the port. So if it is that there is any information that we lack, we will point you to the relevant authority. Read that.
Over to you, Ms. Cruikshank.
Thank you very much. No, thank you very much, Mr. Hanson. You really taught me a lot. And our viewers and our students and staff at the Norman Manley Law School is forever so grateful for yourself and your colleague this morning for the information you have provided to us. At this time, we're going to ask Mr. Omar Varela, I apologize, to issue the vote of thanks. Over to you now, Mr. Varela.
Morning again, everyone. A small token of thanks to Mr. Hanson and his team for coming out today, imparting their invaluable knowledge and also sharing their invaluable time with us today. We appreciate you guys coming in and informing us.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hanson, and we look forward to seeing your representatives tomorrow here at the Norman Manley Law School Legal Aid Clinic Fair. For persons online and persons who are here with us in person today, remember tomorrow our fair starts at 10 o'clock. It will be a live fair. We'll have exhibitors, we'll have booths, we'll have all sorts of information in which you can walk around, you can ask questions. And then we'll also continue our presentations tomorrow under the theme Buyer Beware. So see you tomorrow at the Norman Manley Law School Legal Aid Clinic, Gibraltar Road. As indicated before, it's the post office gate. Once you come in through that gate and you arrive at the first stop sign, you make the right and you head right down to the Norman Manley Law School Legal Aid Clinic, right beside the police station. So we look forward to seeing you tomorrow in person. And for those who can't be in person, please join us tomorrow again live for more information under the slogan, Buyer Beware. Thank you very much. And this ends our presentation for today until tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. Thank you.